Prokaryotes and eukaryotes are two fundamental types of cells that make up all life on Earth. But what exactly sets them apart? While both types of cells perform similar functions necessary for life, they do so in distinct ways due to their structural differences. Understanding these differences can help you appreciate how life is organized, from the simplest bacteria to the most complex multicellular organisms like humans, animals, and plants. If you want to remember these differences quickly, mnemonics can be incredibly helpful in making the facts stick. One of the key distinctions between prokaryotes and eukaryotes is cell structure. Prokaryotes are much simpler, lacking a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. Instead, their DNA floats freely in the cytoplasm, which can sometimes make them seem like open spaces with no boundaries. To help remember this, think of the mnemonic prokaryotes equal pro, as in projecting, with no boundaries or enclosure. In contrast, eukaryotes have a true nucleus, where their DNA is enclosed and separated from the cytoplasm. Eukaryotes also have membrane-bound organelles like mitochondria and the Golgi apparatus, which are essential for their more complex functions. You can remember this with eukaryotes equal EU, meaning true signifying that they possess a true nucleus. Another critical difference is DNA organization. Prokaryotes have circular, free-floating DNA in the cytoplasm, which is efficient for their simple, single-celled life. On the other hand, eukaryotes have linear DNA that's organized into chromosomes and enclosed within the nucleus, giving them more structure and the ability to regulate gene expression in complex ways. For mnemonics, think of prokaryotes equals P for circular, free-floating DNA and eukaryotes equals E for enclosed linear DNA, which helps distinguish the two types of cells based on their genetic organization. When it comes to size, the differences are equally striking. Prokaryotes are small, typically measuring between 0.2 and 2.0 micrometers. Their smaller size helps them absorb nutrients quickly and reproduce rapidly, making them highly adaptable. Eukaryotes, in contrast, are much larger, typically ranging from 5 to 100 micrometers in size. This size allows eukaryotes to support more complex internal structures, such as organelles. You can remember this by thinking prokaryotes equal petite, because they are small, and eukaryotes equal enormous, because they are significantly bigger. Another notable difference is how reproduction occurs. Prokaryotes reproduce through a simple, asexual process called binary fission, where the cell splits into two identical cells. This method allows for rapid reproduction, which is beneficial for survival in changing environments. Eukaryotes, however, reproduce both sexually and asexually, depending on the organism. The process of sexual reproduction in eukaryotes involves meiosis, while asexual reproduction is carried out through mitosis. To remember this, think of prokaryotes equal painless for the simple and fast process of binary fission, and eukaryotes equal evolution for the more complex forms of reproduction that allow for genetic diversity and evolution. The presence of organelles is another significant distinction. Prokaryotes do not have membrane-bound organelles, and their ribosomes are smaller, 70s. They rely on simpler mechanisms for energy production and other cellular functions. Eukaryotes, in contrast, are equipped with membrane-bound organelles like mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, and chloroplasts in plants, all of which contribute to their more sophisticated functions. To make this distinction easier to remember, think prokaryotes equal plain because they have fewer organelles, and eukaryotes equals efficient, as their organelles are specialized for greater cellular efficiency. The presence or absence of a cell wall is another area where the two cell types differ. In prokaryotes, the cell wall is present in all species, composed of peptidoglycan in bacteria and pseudopeptidoglycan in archaea, providing structure and protection. Eukaryotes only have a cell wall in plants and fungi, which is made of cellulose or chitin. The cell wall is absent in animals, which have other mechanisms for protection and structure. To remember this, you can think prokaryotes equal protection, since they all have a cell wall, and eukaryotes equal exceptions, because the cell wall is only found in certain eukaryotic organisms, like plants and fungi. When it comes to cellularity, prokaryotes are always unicellular organisms, which means they consist of a single cell. Eukaryotes, on the other hand, can be unicellular, like protists, or multicellular, like humans, animals, and plants. This ability to form complex multicellular organisms is a defining characteristic of eukaryotes. To remember this, think prokaryotes equals protected, since they are always single-celled, while eukaryotes equal everything, because they can be both unicellular and multicellular. Another difference lies in the genome. Prokaryotes typically have a smaller genome with a single replication origin, which means they replicate their DNA quickly and efficiently. Eukaryotes, on the other hand, have a much larger genome with multiple replication origins, making their DNA replication more complex. For a mnemonic, you can think prokaryotes equal primary, referring to their simple and smaller genome, and eukaryotes equals expanded because their genome is larger and more complex. Finally, when you think about examples, prokaryotes include organisms like bacteria and archaea, which are essential in processes like decomposition and nitrogen fixation. Eukaryotes include a much broader range of organisms, such as plants, animals, fungi, and protists. To remember this distinction, think prokaryotes equal pure, as they represent the simpler foundational forms of life, and eukaryotes equals everything else because they encompass all complex life forms, from plants to animals. In conclusion, prokaryotes and eukaryotes are both vital to life on Earth, but they differ significantly in their structure, functions, and roles within ecosystems. By using mnemonics, we can easily remember these differences. Prokaryotes, P, representing their simple, petite, and primary nature, and eukaryotes, E, representing their complex, enormous, and expansive features. Whether you're studying biology or just curious about the microscopic world, understanding these two types of cells will give you a clearer picture of how life operates at its most fundamental level.